From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. urged all Filipinos, particularly youth, to take an active role for safeguarding the country's cultural heritage, designating it a national duty linked to the survival of the Filipino identity. President Marcos made the announcement at the 2023 Gawad sa Manlilikanang Bayan or Gamaba conferment ceremony at the Metropolitan Theater in Manila.
Kilalanin natin at ipagmalaki natin ang sarili natin. Support the continuation of the priceless legacies that have been passed on to us by our cultural masters. It is our civic duty to keep these traditions alive, for within them lie our voice, our strength, and the very essence of our identity.
9 new National Living Treasures were honored in the event held during National Heritage Month. They are Filipino traditional artists who have dedicated their lives to preserving indigenous practices in their communities. The honorees represent the entire archipelago from Ilocano oral poets in the north to Tiboli weavers and Sama dancers in the south. The Gamaba, established by Republic Act 7355, honors Filipino traditional artists who demonstrate proficiency and commitment to their trade. The law assures that indigenous cultural traditions be passed down to future generations. Adelita Bagcal of Ilocos Norte and Rosie Sula of South Cotabato received Gamaba Awards for preserving oral tradition and chanting, as well as for passing down ancestral voices through storytelling from generation to generation. Abina Cogwit of Agusan del Sur and Amparo Mabanag of Mountain Province received Gamaba Awards for their complex needlework and beadwork, which convey deep traditional connotations related to identity, spirituality, and community. Marife Ganahon of Bukidnon, Samporonia Madanlo of Davao Oriental, and Barbara Ofong of South Cotabato received the honor for their weaving mastery. Their art tells the stories and spirit of their villages via the use of natural materials and intricate designs. Hadja Sakinurain de Lasas of Tawi-Tawi received recognition for her beautiful movement in traditional dance, which powerfully reflected her people's culture. Finally, Bondos Fara of South Cotabato was acknowledged for his expertise in brass casting, which uses fire and metal to make long-lasting objects that represent cultural pride and identity. President Marcos emphasized that cultural preservation is a shared national obligation that involves both artists and the state. The president made the call to reiterate his government's steadfast commitment to protecting indigenous culture and customs in the face of rapid technological advancements.
Ang ating pagkakakilanlan bilang Pilipino ay hinubog ng mayamang kultura at tradisyong minana natin sa ating mga ninuno. Kayamanang ating iniingatan at ipapasa sa susunod na mga henerasyon. As the world adapts to the pace of modern times, where fleeting trends often eclipse the wisdom of the past, the Philippines stands proud as a haven of timeless traditions, preserved, kept alive by the devoted stewards of our cultural bearers. Sa ating mga manlilikha ng bayan, maraming salamat po sa pagtuturo ng kahalagahan ng ating katutubong kultura. Sa gitna ng makabagong mundo, kayo ang tinig ng ating pinagmulan.
The chief executive commended the recipients as living embodiments of our national heritage, as well as carriers of tradition, artisans of age-old craft, guardians of indigenous knowledge who demonstrate that culture, when deeply rooted and consciously preserved, can never be erased. The honorees will be given a commemorative medal, a 100,000 pesos grant, and a 10,000 pesos monthly salary for life. They will be given the task of passing on their knowledge to their communities and future generations, promoting their trade and donating samples or replicas of their work to the National Museum.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said the country's removal from the Financial Action Task Force or FATF Gray List reflects Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s efforts to position the Philippines as trustworthy and development-oriented country. Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro explained that the country's delisting from the FATF marks its full compliance with the International Cooperation Review Group or ICRG action plan throughout 2024.
Kinilala ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. ang mga lingkod bayan at institusyon na nakatulong para mawala sa Financial Action Task Force Gray List ang Pilipinas. Dahil sa kanilang aksyon para matugunan ang International Cooperation Review Group Action Plan items noong 2024, kinumpirma ng FATF ang ating pag-alis sa Gray List nitong Pebrero 2025. Ang ibig sabihin nito, mas mababa ang remittance fee at mabilis na pagpapadala para sa ating mga OFW. Bukod dito, napadali rin ang international financing para sa mga negosyo. At nagdulot ito ng mas pinalakas na proteksyon laban sa money laundering, terrorist financing at proliferation financing. Patunay ito na tuloy-tuloy ang aksyon ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. at ng kanyang administrasyon para mapakitang katuwang sa kaunlaran, maaasahan, ligtas at responsable ang Pilipinas.
The FATF's Gray List identifies nations with strategic inadequacies in combating money laundering and terrorism funding. The Philippines has been on the list since June 2021. Last week, President Marcos personally recognized public personnel and institutions who played critical roles in reaching the milestone. Castro predicted that the country's enhanced status will result in speedier and more affordable remittances for abroad Filipino workers, greater access to international corporate funding, and tighter protections against financial crimes.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang welcomes the Philippines' first grant from the Worldwide Adaptation Fund. In a news briefing, Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the $10 million climate resilience project in Tawi-Tawi is a major step in guaranteeing the future of vulnerable communities. She said the project, harnessing the water-energy-food nexus to address and adapt to climate change impacts in Tawi-Tawi, would benefit Sibutu and Sitangkay, the country's southernmost and most climate-affected regions. Castro emphasized the necessity of providing steady water supplies to these island municipalities, claiming that the project illustrates the Marcos administration's commitment to long-term climate adaptation and sustainable development.
Nakakuha ang Pilipinas ng $10 million mula sa Adaptation Fund para sa isang proyekto sa Tawi-Tawi. Ang proyektong harnessing the water energy food nexus to address and adapt to climate change impacts in Tawi-Tawi ay naglalayong palakasin at ang kakayahan ng mga komunidad laban sa mga epekto ng climate change. Partikular na susuportahan ito ang mga bayan ng Sibutu at Istangkay para masiguro ang ligtas at matatag na akses sa tubig sa harap ng tumitinding mga hamon dala ng climate change. Isang malaking hakbang para sa mas matatag na kinabukasan ng ating mga komunidad sa Tawi-Tawi tungo sa isang bagong Pilipinas.
The project was authorized during the 44th board meeting of the Adaptation Fund, which took place in Bonn, Germany from April 8 to April 11, with the Departments of Environment and Natural Resources and Finance leading the campaign to acquire the award. The Adaptation Fund funds projects and programs that assist vulnerable communities in developing nations to adapt to climate change, Projects revolve around the country's needs, perspectives, and priorities.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang cautioned of a potential spike in fake news as the 2025 midterm elections approach. The public was advised to remain vigilant and avoid becoming keyboard warriors who circulate disinformation against the government. Less than a week before millions of Filipinos participate in the local and national elections, Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro expressed concerns about the continued use of fake news to damage the Marcos government and confuse voters. She said the distribution of disinformation is nothing new and has long been used to undermine the administration and the president. She urged voters not to fall for malicious online content intended to alter public opinion through unfounded assaults. The palace official condemned people who allegedly spread fake news with the sole purpose of harming the administration. Previously, Senator Francis Tolentino revealed during a Senate hearing that the Chinese embassy paid Philippine-based Infinitus Marketing Solutions to set up and run troll farms in the country to spread misinformation, attack government officials, and promote pro-China narratives through fake social media profiles. Castro also underlined that criticism is acceptable in a democratic society, but it must be founded on facts and evidence. The midterm elections are slated for Monday with millions of Filipinos expecting to vote for new senators and representatives as well as local government officials.
Hindi lamang po naglalabasan mga fake news ngayong papalapit ang eleksyon. Matagal na pong naglalabasan ang mga fake news laban sa Pangulo, laban sa gobyerno. At unang-una po na maipapayo ng administrasyon, maging mapanuri. Unang-una po ay maging mapagmatsyag at huwag niyo pong ibenta ang inyong dignidad. Huwag ibenta ang bansa sa ibang mga bansa na maaaring may interes dito sa ating teritoryo, sa ating soberenya. Huwag ibenta ang bansa sa pamamagitan ng pagiging keyboard warrior. At ang tanging maging trabaho o goal ay gumawa ng fake news para sirain at maging negatibo ang taong bayan sa ating Pangulo at sa pamahalaan. Iwasan po natin hanggat maaari ang makinig, manood ng alam nating mga na ang content ay puro pagbatikos sa pamahalaan nang walang ebidensya. Maaari pong bumatikos, maaari pong punuhin ang ating pamahalaan hanggat may ebidensya. Hindi po yan isinasara ang pinto. Ang pintuan po ng pamahalaan ay hindi naman po hahadlangan ang anumang mga kritisismo hanggat mayroon pong basihan. Ang ingatan lang po natin ay ang mga fake news peddlers. Labanan po natin ang fake news para kayo po ay magkaroon ng magandang desisyon sa Mayo 12.
Philippine Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang emphasized the importance of the Department of Information and Communications Technology or DICT's courses for literacy in Internet and computer knowledge or CLIC program in developing tech-savvy and future-ready Filipinos. This came as Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro greeted the delivery of 75 laptop computers to 2 community institutions in Camarines Sur as good news. The DICT's Project CLIC is consistent with Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s order to ensure that no Filipino falls behind as the country embraces digital digital transformation. As a part of the DICT's flagship project CLICK, the Governor Mariano Villafuerte Community College or GMVCC in Libmanan Town acquired 50 laptop computers while the Baao Community College or BCC received the remaining 25. In a palace press briefing, Castro stated that the DICT's program promotes digital access as a basic right rather than a privilege.
Isa pa pong good news, alinsunod sa utos ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. na tiyaking walang Pilipinong maiwang offline, pinangunahan ng Department of Information and Communications Technology ang pagpapatupad ng digital bayanihan. Dito, nagbigay ang ahensya ng laptops sa mga community college sa Camarines Sur sa ilalim ng CLICK o Courses for Literacy in Internet and Computer Knowledge na program ng DICT kung saan isinusulong na ang digital access ay isang basic right at hindi lamang pribilehiyo. Inaasahang makakatulong ang mga laptop na ito sa mga estudyante, guro, non-teaching personnel at maging local government workers para matuto, maging innovative at magkaroon ng mga bagong oportunidad. Dahil sa enhanced access sa digital resources, inaasahan din na makakakita ng improved productivity, mas mahusay na academic outcomes, at isang henerasyon ng tech-savvy at future-ready na mga Pilipino.
Philippine Residential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang reported that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed an investigation into dredging and reclamation activities in Philippine waters. This comes after the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency or NICA revealed that sand from the Philippines' coastal areas was being used in China's reclamation efforts in the West Philippine Sea. When asked if the government would hold responsible local government units or LGUs liable for quarrying operations in coastal areas, Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said it would rely on the findings of an extensive inquiry.
Matapos po makatanggap ng impormasyon patungkol po dito, inutos po ng Pangulo na magkaroon po ng masinsinang pag-iimbestiga patungkol dito. At ngayon po ay ongoing ang investigation at kapag ka po nagkaroon na po ng pinal na pag-iimbestiga o konklusyon papunta dito, ay patungkol po dito, gagawin po ang agarang pag-uutos. Ito ay ayon doon sa maaaring maging resulta ng investigasyon. Kaya nga po ito ay iimbestigahan kung meron pong dapat managot. Ito naman din po ang bilin ng Pangulo. Hindi po pwedeng iwasan ang mga tao. Kung may dapat panagutin, dapat pong managot. So, masinsinan po at malalim na pag-iimbestiga po ang dapat na gawin dito.
Sources said DICA is presently looking into several Chinese corporations' reclamation and dredging activities in Philippine waterways, including Manila Bay.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said the detention of former President Rodrigo Duterte is in accordance with the law, reiterating that the Philippine government has to honor its commitments to the International Criminal Police Organization or Interpol. Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro in a Palace press briefing maintained that there is nothing wrong with the Marcos administration's decision to allow the arrest of Duterte because he is facing crimes against humanity before the International Criminal Court or ICC. Duterte's daughter, Vice President Sara Duterte, accused Marcos of committing an impeachable offense by allegedly facilitating her father's arrest and subsequent transportation to the ICC detention center in The Hague, Netherlands. She claimed Marcos broke the Constitution and undermined public confidence by permitting foreign jurisdictions to intervene in Philippine sovereignty. Castro described Duterte's statement as baseless.
Unang-una po, ang pamahalaan po, ang administrasyon po, gumawa po ng hakbang na naaayon sa batas at ito po ay in cooperation with the Interpol. Ang pamahalaan nagsukuman po kay dating Pangulong Duterte. Siya po ay kinukonsiderang isang akusado, isang suspect sa crimes against humanity, particularly murder, na ang nagsampa rin po ay kapwa Pilipino na di umanong biktima ng extrajudicial killings ng madugong war on drugs. Ang ginawa ng pamahalaan ay hindi naman po pagsuko ng soberenya, kundi pagsuko ng isang akusado. Uulitin po natin ang sinabi ng Pangulo sa SONA 2022. I will not preside over any process that will abandon even 1 square inch of territory of the Republic of the Philippines to any foreign power. Hindi po ibebenta o isusuko man ng Pangulo ang anumang parte ng ating karapatan sa bansa. Kanino man.
Castro, however, stated that the government personnel involved in Duterte's arrest would file counter affidavits with the Office of the Ombudsman. On Tuesday, the Ombudsman directed Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla, Criminal Investigation and Detection Group Director, Major General Nicolas Torre III, Philippine National Police Chief General Romel Francisco Marbil, Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla, and Special Envoy on Transnational Crimes Marcos Lacanilao to respond to the complaint about the legality of Duterte's arrest.
Alam naman natin po kung ano po ang kapangyarihan ng Ombudsman. Sa napakabilis pong pag-aksyon ng Ombudsman sa reklamo pong ito ni Senator Amy Marcos, tayo naman po ay tutugon. Ang mga nasabing mga opisyal ay tutugon po at sila po ay magsasubmit ng kanilang mga counter affidavits. At muli, sasabihin natin, ang kanilang mga ginawa ay naaayon sa batas. Unang-una po, lagi naman po sinasabi ng Pangulo, sundin ang batas, kung anong procedure na valid at legal, dapat lamang po sundin.
Duterte is charged with crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court for his violent drug war campaign.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang has announced May 12 as a special non-working holiday nationwide for the 2025 national and municipal elections. On Tuesday, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin signed Proclamation 878 on behalf of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. establishing a nationwide vacation to enable the people to properly exercise their right to vote. The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, recently requested President Marcos to designate May 12 a holiday so that registered voters can cast their ballots. Filipinos will vote for senators, House members, party list representatives, and local authorities such as governors, vice governors, mayors, vice mayors, and members of the local council.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, on orders from the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., the Anti-Red Tape Authority, or ARTA, is stepping up efforts to eliminate delays and corruption in local government offices by ensuring that all LGUs fully use the Electronic Business One-Stop Shop, or EBOS system. This EBOS, a digital portal developed by the ARTA, aims to make business transactions faster, easier, and more transparent for the public. In a Malacañang press briefing, ARTA Director General Secretary Ernesto Perez reaffirmed the government's commitment to replacing red tape with red carpet, creating a more investor-friendly environment by 2028. Perez said the LGU's full compliance with EBOS is key to attracting local and foreign investments, especially with the global manufacturing shifts.
In 2028 po, ang ating gusto ay lahat po ng local government units should be compliant with the Electronic Business One-Stop Shop, because we know that by attracting businesses to come in, that's why we're replacing red tape with red carpet, because this is the number one concern amongst the businessmen. Dito po ba sa Pilipinas ready tayo for business? Kapag napaalam po natin sa buong mundo na ang Pilipinas ay ready for business, dadagsa po ang mga negosyante dito. Dadami po ang negosyo, dahil dito we will have more business and livelihood opportunities for our people.
Perez reported that the 131 LGUs will face legal action for failing to comply with the mandated creation of an e-boss system. This move follows the issuance of 431 notices to explain, of which 134 LGUs did not respond. Perez said that failure to comply or respond to notices constitutes a clear violation of the Ease of Doing Business law and the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. He added that cases will be filed with the Office of the Ombudsman. Perez said only 115 out of 1,642 LGUs have fully complied with the e-boss requirements, of which 77 achieved compliance only in 2025. While 1,203 LGUs are partially automated, ARTA continues to push for full compliance, citing available free systems from the Department of Integrated Communications and Technology, or DICT, such as eGov.ph. Perez said delays often cited by LGUs such as poor internet connectivity or lack of funding are not valid excuses. He pointed out that even 6-class municipalities have managed to implement e-boss with national support. Perez highlighted how e-boss dramatically reduces processing time, citing Malabon and Navotas, which now issues business permits in under 10 minutes. In Valenzuela, it takes as little as 5 minutes.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.